Hi folks, right, I thought as I've got nothing to do today, I would do part 2 of Dr. Roy Meadow. In part 1 we got up to how everybody, well not everybody, but how he came to be quite infamous in the way that he has. I've said in my last video that Meadow's law, which was basically his phrase of 1 baby death is cot death, 2 is suspicious, and 3 is murder. That was basically the mantra, and people jumped on that. And as I said in my last video, that hasn't gone away, it's just been called something else. But in this section of it, I want to get into a bit more of what led him into this sort of arena in the first instance. So in 1977, he published the results. Sorry, I'm reading notes again. He published results in an investigation that he conducted in the case of 81 infants whose deaths had been classified as either sudden infant death syndrome or SIDS or natural death. And the study showed that, as the study that he conducted, now he wasn't a pathologist and he wasn't a neurologist, he wasn't any of these things. So in his study at St James's University Hospital in Leeds, he covered, this was over 18 years, and he managed to identify 81 cases that he said were murder. And oddly enough, this sort of changed as he went along. But back in this time, his presumption of this was that the people who committed these crimes, alleged crimes, and only alleged by him, nobody else, were the mothers. So he started to build a profile of what these mothers would be like. And he found one case where the mother had actually been a nurse. And her child, when in one of these cases, it was said to have had a huge amount of sodium, salt, in the baby's urine. So he said that this woman must have been basically using her medical knowledge to sort of tube feed him salt water or whatever it was, to have these sodium levels through the roof. Now he didn't actually use his paediatric brain and know that there were a number of other conditions that can cause this. And obviously, reading notes, he didn't get to prove or disprove this, but that was her. So he started to build a profile of what these women were. They were healthcare workers or in that health profession in one way or another. And that's who he started looking at. But of course, from 1977 to when he was running riot in the family courts and such, that profile completely changed, because we have to remember here that Sally Clark, who was accused of killing her 2 children, a few days prior to trial, her whole case was based on shaken baby syndrome. And literally, and how this case could have even gone to trial, having had the whole medical concept change, I don't know, but it did. And it was probably purely by the fact that the medical experts weren't there to actually refute anything that this dream team had to say. These court experts that were successful at it, they were successful, they were winning. So literally a couple of days before, that got changed to smothering. So it changed with Meadows. I mean, he got so out of control. What did he call this? His article, Munchausen by Proxy, the hinterlands of child abuse, which appeared in the journal Lancet, was shocking in its implications. Meadow claimed that at least 81 babies, we just spoke about that, blah, blah, blah. And that forensic pathologists who performed the autopsies had ignored obvious signs of physical abuse, from broken bones, scars, object lodged in air passages, and toxic substances in their blood and urine. This was the salt case. Excuse me. As for missing broken bones, not too sure about that. Not too sure about that. I can find no evidence of that. But then how can you? These were 81 cases that he reviewed, so they don't have names to them, and they don't have profiles that you can go and research. It's very easy, isn't it? Like, over a course of 18 years, how much evidence gets lost? How much evidence gets lost in that period of time? In this article, he came close to accusing some of the pathologists of helping patients, mostly mothers, of getting away with murder. And that was kind of like the Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That was how it was born. And it was off a psychological disorder identified in 1951 by Richard Asher, who described, excuse me, who described patients who injured themselves or made themselves sick to attract sympathy and attention. Asher named the syndrome after Baron von Munchausen. Now, he was just like, I think it was, we mentioned him before, but I think it was like 1780s or something. It was like stupid time ago. And this guy like had sort of travelled the world a bit and made out he was this great war hero, said he'd flown to the moon, said that he could fly on cannonball. It was just a nutter. And that's where Munchausen come from. I mean, kind of like Walter Mitty, really, just someone who couldn't stop tall tales. This is a long way off of mums killing children, though, but that's the basis of it. So that's kind of like how that came. It was over from 1977, and it was a gradual. And during this time, obviously the Lancet are publishing papers. He's continuing to publish papers. He's speaking at events. He's raising his profile, and his court appearances and his social services work. His profile's raising. Now, in one of the articles I read here, which is Jim Fisher True Crime Blogspot, he gets it completely wrong in this, because he says that Meadows conducted covert surveillance tests. No, that wasn't him. That was Southall. But they were, I can understand that confusion, because they were a very similar mind and around the same time. So that isn't correct. So I won't link that. Right. So Meadows. Now, when we go right back with Meadows into the 80s, there is some evidence of him of MSBP and vaccine injury. I know this for a fact. Because I know a number of people that have been accused of Munchausen by proxy over the years, and also shaken baby, obviously. And a lot of these accusations came off the back of people saying, no, hang on, they were fine until the vaccines. And I stand by that. That's what people have told me, and that's what I stand by with Charlotte. You can't tell me any different. I saw it with my own eyes. Excuse me. Right. So I'll get into the psychologist who I've known for many years, Lisa Blakemore Brown. She saw me through thick and thin during the trial, and also the family court disaster. And equally, I was a good friend to her as well, because I was supporting her through all of the false accusations that were being thrown at her with in the British Psychological Society and all the tribunals and crap, which cost a fortune, which she didn't have by the end of it. It bankrupted her, pretty much bankrupted her. Among other things, ruined her career and her reputation and all the rest of it. Odd that, isn't it? So anyway, sidetracking, we'll get into that, because I'm going to finish this off with other professionals that can say that they've had an awful lot worse time of it, because they didn't go running back to the GMC and get reinstated. Plenty didn't, you know, oddly, when they were going like, could be the vaccine. But that'll be part 3, I think. Part 3 is going to be... I was going to do the case of Kathleen Folbig in this one, but when I was researching 2 weeks ago, I'd seen that she'd had another appeal in Australia, and it had gone against her again. which I couldn't understand. But then I've seen, like, only yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, when I was like topping my notes up here, is that actually she's been granted a new appeal. So I haven't looked into that as to the details of, literally one's just been denied, and it's got to be a judge problem there, I think, because it didn't seem right that the other appeal like just got chucked out. It has to be a retrial, has to be a retrial at the least. That poor cow's been in prison, what, 15 years now? No, long, since 2003, I think. So anyway, now I'm not going to put this as a bold statement because you don't know for sure. But Meadows was involved in something called, right, I've got the document here. It was the Committee of Safety of Medicines, Joint Committee on Vaccine and Immunization, Joint Subcommittee on Adverse Reactions to Vaccines and Immunizations, and I'm going to shorten, these are called the ARV1 papers, and they were in 1987, right? So this is when he's really pushing his Meadows theory, this Munchausen by proxy. It's really sort of gaining ground here. And there, I'll put the link to this. I will put the link to this. Now, this is actually a document I can't find any. Well, I found it on the internet. Someone else has published it. But I did have this document, and it could be that I've scanned it and it's on the other laptop. It could be there, because actually this was a document that Lisa Blakemore Brown gave to me bloody years ago. Probably before I even left from New Zealand. So we're going back a long time. So once, what does he do? So if he had, like, is there a connection with him, with the pharmaceutical industry? Because it seemed that the MSBP diagnosis, there could be a little bit more than meets the eye, because he was on that adverse reaction committee from 1987 to 1991. And it doesn't make much sense, because he doesn't mention, in the Sally Clark case, in the original trial, he categorically stated that there could be no causal link between the vaccine and what had happened to her children, even though it was within the bracket of the time that adverse reactions happen. And it's, you know, cot death is certainly one of the worst reactions that is listed on the inserts. So what I'll do is I'm going to point you to, I'm just trying to find the point in question here. Yeah, when on the link you need to look at section 8, and it's vaccination and cot death in perspective, right? So this is a group of doctors. He's not the only one. There's about 10, I think, there. And it's just a couple of pages of the minutes of this meeting. Now, this document was originally highly redacted, so you couldn't really see anything that went on. And then it's reared its head again without, so you can actually read the bits that you want to read. Now, it doesn't say very much. It doesn't say very much at all. But on the paperwork, there's a Dr. Fine. And he's clearly not confident with the Meadows thing. And Professor Meadows stating that the Pertussis vaccine did not lead to cases of SIDS, and he wanted to, like, look into this further, you know, research on this. And when you look at the minutes of this meeting, it very quickly turns to the influenza vaccine. So considering Meadows was all about, well, psychiatric issues, psychological and psychiatric issues, I would say. If his whole theory is the Munchausen by proxy, then what is he? He's not an immunologist, like, by a long, or he's not an epidemiologist either. So I don't know. Is there a connection there with a vaccine company? Because we do know that the big pharmaceutical companies do sponsor and give shed loads of money to the teaching hospitals here. I knew someone that was at Oxford training to be a microbiologist. and they found a pathogen that they were all really excited about with regard to cancerous cells. And like even his professor was like, wow, like this we weren't expecting this result and all the rest of it, and the funding got pulled, and that was the end of that. So I don't know. It's I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. It is possible. It is more than possible that SIDS, MSBP, shaken baby are all vaccine related. It's more than possible, because if you've got a perfectly healthy baby and then they have a vaccine and they're really not anymore, they're injured, and you know, they go from having sensory skills and all the rest of it, and within 2 weeks of having a vaccine they're non-verbal and they've lost their sensory skills, and with the very young babies they'll be put down as cot death or worse, MSBP or shaken baby. And the moral of the tale is like, don't talk about the vaccines, I guess, otherwise you could potentially get accused of something. So we know he got his license back. Like, he got struck off and then he got his license back. Good for him, eh? Meadow's law didn't stop. It didn't stop at all. In America, it's called, oh God, Munchausen by proxy is now called something really strange, but it's not recognised in psychiatry or psychology, but people are still losing their children from it. I think they're calling it fabrication by internet or something like that. And these are the people that make out their children are ill to do GoFundMes. You know, the scammers. There was that woman whose daughter, what was her name? Gypsy something. And she'd made out that her daughter had all these conditions for years and years and years, and then the daughter ends up killing her. That was over in the States. Actually, well, I don't know how long ago that was. I don't think it was that long ago. But that was a classic case of a mother who probably, well, if Munchausen by proxy does exist, that woman was doing it because she was getting away with it for years. The woman, you know, that poor kid was having so many procedures carried out on it. So I'm not saying that MSBP doesn't exist, but I don't think it never did exist in the volumes that were going and are going through the family court. In the UK, it's now not called Munchausen by proxy, it's called fabricated induced illness. But it hasn't changed. You know, it's still the same thing. Like, in the absence of knowing what happened, then depending on what sort of social worker you've got or what sort of GP you've got, the finger can easily be pointed at you with an unexplained death. I hope this isn't a little disjointed. I stopped doing these for a few days and I lose my flow on them. So what we're going to get into in part 3, because we're 18 minutes in, and I don't think I've done this part very well, to be honest, but sorry. Right, we're going to get into Kathleen Folbig in the next section of this. And she was sentenced, I think it was 40 years in prison and a minimum of 35 years, and I think that got reduced to 25 years with a minimum of, or 30 years with a minimum of 20, but I believe that was in 2003. There's so much genetic analysis been done now that how this can't be a retrial. This poor woman, you know, she's been in prison now since 2003, I believe. It's just awful, isn't it? Just absolutely awful. Now, if she's guilty of it, then she can stay where she is. But you can't have people put in prison where there is no evidence at all. And now, even worse, Meadow's law has been horrifically discredited for his statistics of... well, she had a lunatic, and I can't remember the pathologist's name. She had a lunatic... medical expert in her case, who kind of went off the basis of the Meadows law. One is cot death, 2 is suspicious, 3 is murder. she actually came up with an even better statistic. For that to have happened to Kathleen, it would be a 1 in a trillion chance. Plucked out of thin air, just like Meadows went from 1 in a million to 1 in 73 million, just like lunacy, absolute lunacy. But Kathleen's case is a whole case in itself, because it has been in and out of court so many times. And this just goes to show how easy it is to get put in prison, but how incredibly difficult it is for you to get an appeal. How incredibly difficult. And this is like with no evidence whatsoever other than discredited medical expert evidence. So let's leave that one there. What I did want to say is thanks for the birthday wishes and all of that malarkey. I had a really nice day yesterday. Didn't do anything Saturday. But I had family here, cooked a giant old roast dinner. Ate way too much for it. I probably had about 3 days worth of food yesterday. And thank you to Kerry, who sent me sweeties. She sent me 5 lottery line things. I've never done the lottery. I didn't win, otherwise I'd have been getting a flight up to her and would have been going to Barbados or somewhere warm. It's probably hurricane season over there at the minute, but we'd been going somewhere warm. Maybe I'd have gone and seen my family. I've not seen them for years in New Zealand. That would be nice. But we didn't win, but I did appreciate my sweeties and my really lovely card. So thank you very much, Kerry, and for all the other nice wishes. So this is going to take some digging through. So I'm going to do the last part of the Meadows saga, and Kathleen getting caught up in this mess all the way over in Australia. And I'll bring out a few other cases of people that are still in prison that I haven't been following for this amount of time in America. And we'll kind of weave them into this, because there's a lot of responsibility with this doctor for a lot of this. So we'll do that, I think, Friday, and maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. I want to go through the news. I want to see what's been going on in the world, because I haven't been watching the news, and I've been keeping off of Facebook, to be honest, because it's just like the same crap every day. Not been looking into what John Wedge is doing. Did have a little nose on his Go Scam Me page, or what is it, Just Giving? Yeah. I think he's up to over $2.5 grand now, so he's halfway there. Yay! Not really bothered with him. Better things to do than I'm sure. Like, if he does anything really stupid, I do want to look into Anna Breeze more though. And yeah, because as much as she's not as obviously awful as John Wedger, like, she doesn't get so excited about the graphic content of what the victims are saying. And she certainly hasn't said on bloody YouTube that people should go and watch child abuse online. She hasn't said anything like that. She is highly commercial and a bit more professional than John Wedger. But I'm kind of getting the feeling that it's all kind of like, it's not going to be much better if you dig very far into it. But are they all just part of the same game? So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to have a little dig around tomorrow and the next day, and we'll do a little upload on that. And then on Friday, I will finish off, I shall finish doing part 3 of the Meadows thing. And then I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave this for quite a while, I think, because it's horrible. It's horrible. And this isn't my best time of year. So, yeah, I might come back to these snidey medical experts maybe in the new year, because it's heavy content for me. I just like, it's not nice. It's not nice reading it, but I do believe it needs to be heard, so no one's forcing my arm to do it. The Southall one, I was under a bit of pressure to do it because people felt a bit let down by me, but I'm not being forced to do the Meadow one, and I wasn't being forced to do the Southall one either, let's be fair. I've got my own mind. But then we'll leave that. Because I imagine we're going to have the COVID vaccine and all the rest of it coming out in the next few months, or at least they'll be ramping up the trials. So, isn't it cold now? It's really cold. I'm going to be migrating into the living room soon, because the sofa's right next to the radiator and I can put my feet on it with fluffy socks. So yeah, that's about it. I hope everybody's well. I hope you all had a really super duper weekend, and I'll catch up with you either tomorrow or Wednesday. Anyway, much love to you and yours. Look after yourselves and talk soon. Bye.